Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to And She Thrived. We have Lisa with us again for our fourth episode in our series on nonviolent communication. Welcome, Lisa. So wonderful to have you again.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So today, Lisa will be talking about the dynamics of power within NVC and how does one respond to power over? Did I frame that correctly?
Yeah, one approach towards it, it's really about looking at where we tell ourselves, I have to do this. And changing the paradigms, reframing that to recognizing, oh, I'm choosing this. This can, it's coming up on tax season. Like, what a great time to be exploring this. So, yeah, it's changing and recognizing what the needs are that we are saying yes to.
Okay. So would you like to come up with a certain situation? Can I come up with an example?
Let's see, maybe I'm thinking it might be helpful. So we've got a lot of single moms out there who are working through uh, parental
Co-parenting, right.
obligations, yeah. And sometimes we get into situations where two parents can't agree on something for the child. Maybe you have a situation you can offer.
Yes. Okay. So many couples who co-parent, they have a certain schedule, and maybe the weekends are divided. And of course, the mother, and I suppose the father as well, would be planning his or her weekend. And then the spouse might approach her on the last minute, say the husband is dropping off the son or daughter, and then he says at the door, oh, by the way, I actually have to travel this weekend. And then she says, well, this was supposed to be my weekend off. And then he might say, well, I have to go, and if you really need, I can take the child with.
Hmm.
Should I stop there, or should I say more about her step?
Yeah, so that's a great situation. So just to paraphrase then, there's a last minute change in one parent's plans and an expectation that that's going to be okay for the other parent. But it sounds like a little bit of confusion around, oh, well, I can take the child still when it's clear to both parents that it's not an ideal situation for the child. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. So it's a pressurized situation because it's on the last second. She hasn't been given any prior notice, so there's been no time to digest this information. And of course, because this trip is extremely far in her estimation, in that very short amount of time, which is a couple of minutes, she doesn't think it's the best decision because it's going to mess up his circadian rhythm, it's going to mess up his school schedule, etc. And so even though she's compromising her own need, she is doing in that moment what she thinks is best for the child as a mother, and saying, okay, fine, I'll have the child with us this weekend.
Ah, right. So there's a sense of submission, but she also recognizes that in saying yes, she's also thinking through the consequences of having a tired child
Mhm.
whose schedule's off are also going to be uncomfortable for me. So, right, the best place to start this let's go back to the situation then. And going with just when so let's take the situation as it stands, what has already happened. So he has said, I've got to go. I could take the child, and there's this unspoken language. The first thing that we want to do is check in with what's happening in our body, because our body is always communicating. So what would you say the mother's going on for the mother in this moment?
Okay. I would say like a bit of alarm. It's actually alarm because it's so sudden that oh, I had plans. Maybe a bit of resentment.
Mhm.
These are the feelings, right? Not the needs, the feelings. So I'd say a bit of resentment, a little bit of anger, maybe confusion. you know.
Right.
I thought that we had discussed this prior. What's going on? We just spoke about this a few days ago. What suddenly come up to change? Maybe also the anger also stems from it's linked to the feeling of not being held in honor and respect. Because if you, it's this, like, I don't know, this is jackal thought, but if you respected me and you took
Mhm.
me, if I mattered, okay, then you would be respectful of my time as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and also because of the power dynamic, because she might be receiving some kind of, there might be some dependency, like some financial support, etc. That frustration of that, well, I guess I do not have autonomy, so this is my child. I'm not going,
Right.
I'm not going to dub my child with a babysitter for the weekend. So I guess that it'll fall on me. Yeah.
Right. So there is an additional dynamic there about, oh, maybe it sounds like a sense of, I have to agree because this is where I have my security. This is where my finances are coming from with this child support.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and
You know, there are many women out there who do not have family support because they might be living in another state or even another country. So they really are on their own, you know.
yeah. Well, what's beautiful that you've started to unravel, which is to really make conscious what's underneath. So whether, especially if you can catch it before there's reactivity. Normally we just react in our old ways. That's just the way we're structured. But what I'm hearing in you is that there's these thoughts, oh, here we go again, if I mattered. And it's good to distinguish, okay, here's what I'm thinking. If I mattered, this wouldn't happen. There's no respect here. I'm telling myself he doesn't respect me. But then noticing too in your body some of those feelings, this anger and resentment. There were some other feelings you named.
Anger, resentment, frustration, maybe a bit of disempowerment, if that's a feeling, to be disempowered. Yeah. So when you're saying that, oh, I'm not respected, blah, 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 those are stories, right? That's a story. It's a narrative. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, disempowered is a story. Thank you for pointing that out. So if I feel
Ah, so
angry and
disempowered is a story,
disempowered is
not a feeling. Because when you feel, you know, it's a feeling. It's like
hmm,
like the energy just leaves your body. I don't know what that is. It's that,
yeah, it's kind of a hopelessness, like uh you know, actually, I am not sure what it is.
yes, I
I
feel
might have to
disempowered is
find
a
out.
feeling. Because when you feel like, oh yes, I've got this, you're like in high energy and your frequency is high, but it's like somebody just took the energy out of you, just like sapped up energy.
You know what? I'm thinking of it. Yeah, I'm pretty clear. Disempowered is a story because this is what this work is about. We're always choosing. So if I'm telling myself I don't have any power, that's a story. But if I'm feeling frustrated, angry, despair, hopeless, if I feel, um, um, those are genuine feelings. Disempowerment. So this is one of those important words because it sounds like it's describing a feeling, but it's actually got some story to it. So I just want to make a um, put a quick spotlight on that because this is important.
Mhm.
And so here's some of the ways that we use words and what the real feelings are. So if I feel discounted, this situation changed. This person isn't we have an experience of feeling discounted, but what actually we're feeling in feeling words is hurt and angry. In this situation, maybe not embarrassed, but frustrated. And I think you named all those words: hurt and angry and frustrated.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's good to make this distinction because when we use feeling words, they're speaking truthfully about what what's happening for us. But if we use faux feeling words and there's story in it, Now someone is probably going to hear what we say as criticism because the
Yes, that
story.
was going to be my question, is that so what if we use, like, if a person says, oh, I feel ignored or I feel dismissed, so what? What's wrong if that's a faux feeling?
So if I'm trying to create, um, if I'm trying to work with you and meeting my needs, and I use words that you're discounting me and discrediting me and then dumping on me, and are you likely, do you think you're likely to want to cooperate with me if you hear
Okay,
the
so I think I know what you mean. If you say that something like, I feel ignored, I feel dismissed, then you are making a judgment about the other person's behavior. And so
yes,
then that person is going to immediately shut down, and it's not going to be a conversation that ensues, because it's not about your own feeling, your own internal experience. You're making a judgment about how that he or she is behaving towards you.
yes.
Yeah.
And what Marshall used to say is, I have to think about what it is I want from you, and the reason why, like, and your motivation for having it. So if you're doing something out of obligation, or you're doing something to cooperate with me because you feel you have to, that's violence.
Hmm.
What
Okay.
we want is open-hearted connection. We want to both be working towards meeting our needs. And when we really identify our needs and we know the needs that are driving us, and we hold those with care and the other person's needs with care, now we have a place to work together. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a little side,
It's important, so we get
very important. Yes.
to understand the framework correctly. So now we're back with the woman where she's
Yeah,
dumped
so we're
with.
back with a woman who's got, so in looking at the situation of responding, so the first thing is to really get clear on what is happening in the body. As we talked a little bit about self-empathy last time, get clear and name it, because what are those needs doing? They're they're the compass, or
What are the
feelings.
feelings? The feelings are
Things are a
indicating.
compass to our needs. And what is really good to recognize here also is that whatever I'm perceiving as a threat is also pointing me to what it is I need.
Mm.
Now, this is part of what we're trying to make conscious and make aware. So, for example, what is the threat? What is the threat I feel if I say no? What is the threat I perceive? What would she perceive?
Perhaps anger, like some kind of angry response from the ex-husband. So
Mm,
to keep the peace.
okay. So if she's met with anger, she's
Mhm.
afraid of being met with anger, then her threat is that,
Oh, her threat. Her threat is,
that
oh,
is, if I'm
what,
met with anger, then
what then her own peace would be disrupted.
my peace will be disrupted.
Mhm.
So good. So my peace, now it's come back to making conscious what's unconscious. My peace, my serenity is really important to me. So that gives the framework of, I'd like to have a conversation where I have some choice. My peace and serenity are really important to me. And in this moment, I'm not able to make this choice, I think, or let's go back to how to make conscious that sense of I have to. So recognize what you value. So if the mom has a weekend that was free for her to develop her career or whatever she's doing, that sense of independence, can you tell me what it is she values, what needs that she values that are underneath that?
She values rest. She values quiet. She values a space to work without interruption or distraction. I don't know if that can be reduced to a specific need.
Mhm.
A need for also choice, meaning that when she has that time, she can decide to go for a walk or have a nap or do some work. So I
Mhm.
don't know what that would be, but it's that need of being free. Is free, I
Yeah.
guess it's being free, right? Where she can do what she wants. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So the need to be free. So let me just name these back because it sounds like they're almost in layers. So there's a need, first of all, there's the need for space and rest and choice in her
Quiet.
schedule,
Mhm.
and that need for freedom, like this time that she has for herself, and the choice to actually be able to make this decision consciously without feeling pressured.
And I would say in that is recuperation, because she can exercise or do whatever she needs to do physically, emotionally to make her a better mother.
Right.
Mm.
Right. It's like replenishing your bucket, right? I
Mhm.
love the bucket metaphor. So this is the time for you to replenish and practice your self-care. And if you're on parental duty, you won't be able to do that in the same way. So you were really, yeah. Does that
Mhm.
sound
Yes.
okay?
Mhm.
Now here's a part of where the shift can happen. So how does your body respond when you think about these needs? How does your body respond to those needs?
Do you mean in that moment when she's
Yeah, even let's just use this moment right now because here's the intention. The intention is to move from reacting unconsciously to identifying and holding the value of these beautiful needs and exercising choice. So it begins in order to get out of that unconscious reactivity. We got to put our attention in those needs.
Mm. I mean, I would say that, for example, if I to focus on those needs, it does move to a kind of a softness because it leads to a kind of a sense of empathy or compassion for oneself. But then it could also lead to feelings of maybe sadness and disappointment because, well, okay, well, I guess this is not going to happen now because
Yeah,
everything's changed. So that's a bit, it's disappointment. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so if she says yes, there's going to be some sadness and disappointment she recognizes, right? Or you or whatever mother. So, yeah. So even that sadness and that disappointment. Um, so let's go back to the mom. Has she said yes yet, or where is she in this process with this?
So because of her estimation,
Mhm.
she concludes that it's better for the child to rather stay and not to go. And yes, she will hold the fort over the whatever day period. Mhm.
Yeah. So if if she has then said yes and she's going to take the child, here's part of what Marshall Rosenberg said that's so beautiful. He says, when we identify what really matters to us and we savor it, this is said so many different ways by different practitioners, but putting our attention into that need that enlivens us, just rather than just identifying it intellectually, savoring the beauty of that. If she recognizes she can say no, and if she says no, she's saying yes to her rest. But if she says yes to accepting the child, she's saying yes to other beautiful needs. And it's recognizing those needs, becoming aware of them, and recognizing I chose protection, care, contribution, nurturing for my child. Those are needs also. And if I say yes, I'm saying yes to those beautiful needs.
Right.
So now, if she hasn't made the choice, she can stop and say, well, I've got some needs that are really important to me. this weekend. And so could we have a discussion of what needs this meets for you? Because if I change my plans, I'd like to have some understanding and some space around making some choice. I'd like to, I think I'm going to need some time to reflect on this. I don't work well under pressure. How is that for you to hear? Let me check in with you first of all. So where are you with
And I'm
what?
thinking that he's going to say, well, I don't have time. I've got to make a decision. I've got to buy flight tickets within the next few hours. I'm going to have to know ASAP.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. So one thing about tension is that when there's a lot of tension, it's good to remember that there is space always for all of our needs to exist. And when there's tension, it's usually because someone's saying their needs matter more than another. So this might be a place to recognize, to have some empathy around the needs that they need to meet. So let's see. This trip must be really important to you. It's coming up last minute, and this is completely changing our arrangement. Would you be open to sharing more about, how this is, or what needs this is going to meet for you? Because I've got, it's, I think I'd like to work together here. See if would you be open to finding a solution that meets both our needs? And maybe if this is going to work this way, maybe there's some ways that I can get that need for rest met that's not on the weekend. That, you see, I guess one of the things we need to remember is that once I identify my need for rest, autonomy and independence and space, if it's not going to happen in this weekend because I say yes to the needs of nurturing and protection for my child, doesn't mean it can't happen at all. Perhaps there's a way you can work with him.
Sounds very balanced, and the thing that I'm thinking is that, okay, what if it's a nice guy? Then he might say, okay, yes, we can make another arrangement, or you can get a babysitter this weekend or something. But if it's just if it's a very negative relationship between the two, then I envision him saying, like, screw it, no. No, I first of all do not have any desire to share my needs. or and it's none of your business, really.
Right. Without getting prying. I mean, obviously, yeah, there could be some
Right.
other.
And he just
Yeah.
might not want to engage at all. And so, but then as you've told me, is that you can't control the other person or know their reactions, but this is more to be in self-alignment and to be authentic within oneself and to be almost satisfied and at peace with one's own behavior and reaction and internal reality, right?
Yes.
Because he
Yes.
just might not want to be involved at all. This is
Right.
the reason. I don't want
Right.
to
It
talk
doesn't
about my
want to.
feelings and my
Mhm.
needs. What is
Yes. So, yeah, because if you can't have the needs conversation, of course, very few people have an understanding of that. But here is something beautiful. There's two things that I'm really seeking to accomplish, which is one, I just don't want to react. I want to act in accordance with what I value. And so that's part of my intention, is to get really clear on how it is that I choose to be in a situation that seems as though I don't have any power. And then the second part is I want to recognize either way, what needs am I saying yes to? Because if I choose to take my son for the weekend that I'm not supposed to have him, there's some big, powerful, beautiful needs. And if I stay focused on that, then I can remember that I had a choice to either choose my self-care, but have that concern and be fraught with worry about my son in a situation where who knows what's happening, or I can choose to have him and know I'm going to choose to have my needs for rest and met in a different way. And that would be a great conversation to have with him because he's the one asking to change the schedule. So I think if there's an expression of care for him, like it sounds like this is really important, an important trip to you. I don't need to know what you're doing, but I do know that my rest and the space and the time that I schedule for myself is really important to me. So if I go ahead and let that go, are you willing to meet me? Are you willing to have an arrangement where you can have some time so I can have that? And if this isn't a good time to talk about it, when is a good time to talk about it?
Okay. Is anything else you wanted to add about power? Because this was about how do you respond to power. Did you want to cover something about the shoulds, the must?
Part of the most important thing in responding to power is identifying what my needs are, because when I can get connected to them, I can respond the way I want to. If I'm responding reactively, now I'm going to create a situation of violence. There's going to be punishment and there's going to be disconnection. There's going to be, if I deny that I chose to say yes, and I deny my responsibility, there's a lot of have to, there's blame, there's judgment. If I make demands of the other, again, there's 4 Ds of disconnection. If I deny that I have choice, if I make demands of another, if I diagnose or evaluate another, or if I come from a sense of I deserve this. So my intention in creating this, in moving into this situation, is I want to avoid those 4 Ds of disconnection. And the first way I do that is recognize that I have choice. There is a request here. It's kind of coming across almost as a demand, but it is a request. Will you take our son? There's going to be consequences if you don't, but if I'm holding my needs with care, and I'm even willing to express some curiosity and care for the other, I can still request to have my needs met. I just want to always come and recognize that everything I do is rooted in choice. That when I say no to something, I'm saying yes to something else. So there's also something really important about if I do say yes, and I take my son, and it's gonna come at the expense of that rest. It's okay to have some mourning. When I actually get in touch with my mourning and my grief, gosh, I'm really sad I didn't get that. It helps keep me out of resentment and the storytelling that happens up here. If I just come into the feeling, I'm really mourning that I didn't get the rest that in the productivity that I need this weekend. But I chose the care for my son, and I chose these needs.
So you're saying that connecting to that feeling and coming into the body, it just stops the chatter in the mind.
Yes. Yeah. That this mind, that jackal, is always up here. And the more I come down and the deeper I go down, the more I get into my needs. Now, once I am in those needs, I'm not reacting. I can also recognize, oh, you know what? There are some other choices I can make. Maybe I can check in with my friend about getting a little support this weekend. You know, I have these, I always have choice. So maybe I'll check in with a friend, or maybe I'll go to the library, or, like there's other ways to look and meet those needs. But it's really important to remember that if I stay in choice, if I stay and recognize that every no is a yes to something else, and every yes is a no to other needs. So it involves making friends with loss and bringing that grief into our sense of self-empathy.
And you say to embrace it rather than to just push it aside.
Yeah. embrace the sadness. Just feel the sadness, because the more I tell the story about it, the longer it stays. And the sadness itself is communicating that need. Oh, I have such a need for autonomy. I have such a need for freedom. Let me stay with that need, that beautiful need, and see if I just bring my attention into autonomy and freedom and independence. How does it feel when I bring my attention there and I choose and make choices from that energy instead of from it? Darn, you never give me my autonomy and freedom. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So then I see her as then being more centered and more satisfied with her own response and her reaction.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
She's
And
not
there's
triggered, acting from a
not
highly
triggered.
reactive, triggered space. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something really beautiful. Once we see how we submit sometimes, and we come when we believe we're responding from a should, just as we bring our awareness, oh gosh, instead of getting stuck in that resentment, what was I saying? What needs did that come at? It came at the cost of my need for space. But what needs was I saying yes to? And kind of coming from that sense of beneficial regret, it's like I can have compassion for anyone that's saying yes to those needs. Like, what a beautiful thing. We all share the same needs. And that's why it's so powerful when we're connected to our needs. And to go to that person who makes the demands or puts us in the situation and say, I got some curiosity about what's going on for you. And, because this really matters to me. And I know your autonomy is important to you. So could we work together on this? Because it will cost me my space, but it sounds like this is really important for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. That's very interesting. We
It
always learn.
is, and I know it's probably very out of context with this particular mother's situation, but I hope that some of those basic premises of coming from curiosity and care, starting with that self-empathy, oh, what is going on for me and what matters to me? What needs am I saying yes to? What needs am I not getting met? And then remembering needs have hundreds of ways to get met. That I can choose, that I don't ever have to submit. I can choose.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We hope to see you in the next episode.